I'm Shannon Janssen, a real estate agent right here in Portland, Oregon. And this podcast is a chance for me to have real conversations with people I work with frequently to keep you informed and educated on all things real estate. Today's guest is Ryan Edmiston with Portland Property Inspectors. Anyway, he's an inspector I work with most frequently, and here's why. I started working with Ryan about 4 years ago, and he has an incredible way of finding all the things that you want to find in a home inspection without being a total alarmist. He'll tell you a little bit more about his background, but I think the fact that he was a home flipper and all those things, which I just gave it away, is part of the reason why. But he's really funny. You should definitely follow him on his Instagram. But he's also just really, really good at his job. So without further ado, I am very excited to introduce Ryan. Ryan, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me on your little podcast.
I know, this is quite the setup, isn't it?
Quite the production. Yeah.
Yeah, this isn't your typical day.
No, you guys can't see it, but there's lights and cameras, and it's quite the deal.
Did you have an inspection this morning?
Yeah, kind of. It was a bathroom that was remodeled in a 115-year-old house, and they wanted me to check over the contractor's work because they didn't permit anything.
Oh.
So it was interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, really good work, but some fit and finish defects in the shower wouldn't drain.
Oh,
so
that's clearly not a good thing.
Yeah, when you spend $100,000 on a bathroom, you kind of wanted to use the shower. So, slight problem.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, first question is, what inspired you to get into the business?
So I was a contractor for about a decade, 15 years before I was a home inspector, and I used to flip houses. And in 2015, it wasn't profitable to flip houses anymore. Mm-hmm. So I took a large road trip for about 4 months. So I went through about 42 states, a bunch of different cities, spent 4 months on the road, put 24,000 miles on my car.
Oh my gosh.
And whittled
Was this
it down.
in one of the Land Cruisers or in a Prius?
No, that was actually a Mercedes E63 AMG.
Okay.
But you know anything about cars, that was the world's fastest production four-door sedan at the time.
Sounds like you know a thing or two about cars also. Okay.
So, baller car.
Okay.
But did the road trip in that, and then was trying to figure out what to do. And I was between an appraiser and a home inspector. Uh-huh. And I didn't like paperwork, so appraiser got ruled out.
Fair.
And I didn't like spiders and crawl spaces, so I really didn't want to be a home inspector. But it won out. And now I do paperwork and I have to deal with spiders. So
yeah, and that's probably not all you have to deal with. Like, I always feel bad for you on those like really hot days when you're up in an attic and it's
those
like
are
120 degrees up there.
Yep.
Yeah, or like your whole suit you put on to get down to a crawl space.
My monogram coveralls.
What's the grossest thing you've seen in a crawl space?
Oh God.
This is totally, I know I didn't plan this question, but now I'm curious.
Generally speaking, anytime there's water. I had an old house in Northeast kind of by me about a year ago. And all the plumbing drains were disconnected.
All of them.
So the crawl space was essentially a cesspool.
Oh my God.
So I think that's a single-handed worst one I've ever seen.
And you actually went down in there then?
God, no. I wouldn't even get near the crawl space door.
Like,
I took pictures from afar and said, you need to call some people.
This is a problem, get an expert.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's probably the single-handed worst one I've ever seen.
Oh my God, that's really gross.
Yep.
Okay, but that kind of leads me to, so you mentioned you'd been a house flipper.
Was a house flipper, yeah. Still, I'm trying to be a house flipper again.
Oh, interesting.
The market's shifted a little bit to where there's some deals out there.
Okay.
So I've been trying to buy for the past couple months.
Interesting. What areas are you targeting?
I want something near me.
Okay.
I don't want to drive all over town dealing with a house.
Fair, because you're going to be doing it.
Yes, I'm looking northeast, southeast, kind of outer.
Okay.
Around 82nd.
Okay.
Yep.
So as a home flipper and an inspector, what are the red flags you see? Like, how do you know when a house has been a bad flip?
You can usually tell when you walk up to the house, and if you can't, you can tell within a couple of seconds in the house.
Okay.
Generally speaking, unless it's really well done. So my clues are usually paint lines. That's a real simple one. So a paint line between the ceiling and the walls. Usually those are inconsistent. Wonky like textures and stuff on the walls. When I go to open and close the doors, for whatever reason, house flippers do not get the doors right.
Yeah.
So I always have a multitude of different issues with the doors.
Huh. It seems so simple, but
it is simple.
Yeah.
But it just always gets overlooked.
If they're not getting those simple things.
Yep. And then just weird fit and finish issues that you can usually cosmetically see walking through the house.
Yeah.
And then when you get into it, there's a lot of issues that go on. But usually it's very obvious fit and finish issues when you're walking through the house.
That's good to know, because you think like those are just like simple little things, like everything else should be fine, but those simple things like really.
No. And I had one last week where it looked great. It was a flip, looked great inside, one of the worst houses I've ever inspected.
Really?
Yeah.
What was bad about it?
It was a house that had been added onto about 4 times. So anytime you do that,
over the years.
yep, you get weird framing issues, plumbing, because you have hodgepodge of all these different parts. And they had just nothing done right. It was just lipstick on a pig, which I don't use that term often.
And was it permitted then?
No, God, no, that was not a permitted. Maybe the structure was. The structure wasn't terrible.
So then how do they even get away with trying to resell it if like there's not permits on anything?
Well, you can buy and sell anything.
Yeah, fair. Okay, fair.
So
fair.
Just depends what the buyer wants to
due
take
diligence.
on. Yeah.
Like that's okay. That's a good point.
Yeah.
But like,
but they were going to use it for an old people's home. So they were going to put like 5 old people in there and rent out the rooms.
was it like even safe?
No, I was really hard on that report as a result.
Really?
Mold in the attic, electrical fire safety issues, just across the board. It had issues.
Oh my gosh. So sidebar, I thought of you last week. I was in a house that had been rebuilt after being completely burnt down.
Oh, wow.
And what had happened, there was an explosion in the garage. And it made me think, oh my gosh, Ryan talks all the time about the firewall barrier between the garage and the house. And I literally in that moment was like, he's right. Like, because everyone in the house, they were fine. Like the dogs and the people were able to get out because the garage like kept that barrier before spreading too quickly.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, okay, so you're right.
Thank you.
You're right.
I like validation every now and again.
Matter.
Yeah, but there's a reason I have big scary comments in the report about that.
Yeah, you do. And there's some people are like, oh, that's overblown. It's just a little blah, 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 blah. But it matters. Like
it matters.
Health and safety.
That's the reason I like the door from the house to the garage to self-close.
Yep.
Which Oregon doesn't require, but
I know
should.
you always bring it up.
Yep.
I know that ours does, and it's a good thing. Otherwise, the dog would run out every time. Like,
it's just annoying bringing groceries in, but
that is the time it's annoying for sure. For sure. But you can like deal with that annoyance to like save your life.
You can put a rock or something there. It's easy enough.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so what are the top 3 maintenance tasks every homeowner should be doing, but they often neglect?
All of them going to go to rainwater management.
Really?
Clean your rain gutters. Get the moss off your roof. Make sure that water's not pooling near the foundation. Make sure you have a positive slope so water gets away from your house. Make sure downspouts are getting water at least 8 feet away from your house.
8 feet. That's like...
Most houses here have an underground storm drain.
Right. Newer houses.
Most old houses do.
Do old houses have that?
I have a 1930s house and it has underground.
Is that just because you're good and you know what to do?
No.
Okay.
Back in the day, they used to connect to the waste sewer. So they go to the sewer treatment plant. And the city wants those disconnected because they don't want to treat rainwater. So your house would go to the curbs, ultimately, which ends up in lakes and streams.
Yeah.
So my house, they shouldn't be connected, but they still are. But that's kind of the issue on the older houses.
Yeah.
They didn't used to go to streams and lakes.
And I don't know if it's just like, since I've been in real estate, I look at somebody's roof and it's immediately like, oh, moss, gutters. Like, it's like just such a red flag for me.
And cosmetically too.
Well, yeah.
I mean, you look at a roof and it's bright green and you're like, how can you not fix this?
Right.
Both my neighbors' houses are bright green, and I've told them 10
and like,
times
how
in the last
often
year.
do you find mold in attics because of a bad roof or moss on the roof? Or
moss is a contributor. It's usually a ventilation defect with the mold, but it's the combination of bad ventilation and moss almost always has mold in the attic, unless it's an old house.
Okay, what's the difference with an old house?
This is the theory. I can't find proof. But old houses have, generally speaking, solid timber roofs. So solid timber joists, decking, just across the board. Or they'll have skip sheathing, which breathes a little bit better. Newer houses are essentially sawdust and glue outside of the 2x4s. So that roof decking doesn't breathe. So my theory is that on older houses, the moisture dissipates inside the attic and then vents out. On a newer house, it can't. There's no way to breathe. So it gets trapped in the roof decking, and then that's where the mold is.
Water issues are like, it's the issue. It's the primary issue in any inspection, whether it's in the crawl space, in the attic, drainage issues, you name it.
And almost all of them stem from roof, gutters, downspouts, soil slope away from the house.
So speaking of all that, are there eras of homes that you like or don't like because you find that they're either built better with like all the things?
So I'm opinionated, but 1950s are my favorite. Okay. So just in general, you're the last of the old growth lumber, which I love old forests, don't cut them down, but it was done. They're really solid houses. That was the last of the area. You kind of had craftsmen building them instead of laborers. 60s are similar, but generally speaking, the windows are up high. They're kind of like gun slits. They're kind of funky houses with some funky designs. Before the 1950s, generally speaking, they're built well, but different. They're a handful from an inspection standpoint. I personally have a 1930s house, so I like old houses. 1970s, everything got really weird. Electric ceiling heat. And there's just so many crazy things in the 70s.
Of the 70s.
Yes. Well, just energy was weird in the 70s. Yeah. So there's a lot of like weird electric stuff in those houses. So 70s, I'm not a huge fan of. 80s out here are great. Huh. Solid timber, really well built for the most part.
Like just in Oregon in particular.
Oregon, Portland specific.
Yeah.
80s houses are great houses out here.
That's good too.
90s houses are probably my worst inspections at the moment.
We've had a few of those together.
We've had some bloodbaths, yeah. So 90s house, that's when all your systems are out of date.
Right.
Your siding, your roof, your furnace, your air conditioning, your water heaters, probably your second time around. Just across the board, they're a tough house.
The most shocking thing to me is that a 90s house is like now like a 30-year-old house.
Yeah.
And so wrapping my brain around that, but right, like I remember you saying like 90s are either like really good or really bad because you get that person who really takes care of it for the last 20 to 30 years and then the people that don't.
Correct. Yeah, a lot of people just live in the house and use all the life of the house.
Just
and then,
deferred maintenance.
Yep, and then move when everything's failed.
Yeah.
The other ones, early 2000s are getting up there too.
Really?
So,
well, because they're starting to be 20 to 30
old.
years old. Yeah.
What I can't wrap my head around, I'll be in a 2015 house. And that's when I started inspecting. So I'm like, oh, this is a brand new house.
I'm like, no.
Then I'm like, this is 10 years old.
It's 10 years old.
Yeah. And a 2005 house to me is pretty new.
Right.
But it's 20 years old now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm dealing with some of that existential crisis of age as well.
Yes, I deal with it every day.
Oh my God. Okay, so here's another interesting one. Have I asked you this? What's the craziest or most unexpected thing you found during a home inspection? Can you even narrow it down?
The one that stands out isn't a defect. It was a farm property. This was during COVID, so a couple years ago, maybe 2022. But the agent did not tell the buyers I was going to be there. And the agent was not a great communicator just to begin with. But it was a 20-acre farm property.
Okay.
A couple single-family houses, and then a couple barns, one of which is the coolest barn I've ever seen.
Okay.
Big hayloft. They were like Armenian or something. They were flipping BMWs. So there was like 4 levels of just these crazy obscure BMWs in this old barn. Anyway, when I rolled up, I just rolled up next to the house ready to start the inspection, got out of the house, Mr. Inspector.
You're like flying your drone.
Some lady came out of the house all methed up with a shotgun. Didn't know I was going to be there. Started chasing me around. I had to go back behind the car.
Are you serious?
Oh, yeah. Calm her down. It was wild.
Like you're like, I'm just the inspector.
Once we got it straightened out, she lowered her weapon and she was kind of friendly.
Is it the first time a shotgun's ever been pulled on you?
First and only time. Okay, hopefully the last.
Good. Let's keep it that way.
That particular house, I was on the fence if I should call child services.
Oh, man.
It was just one of those situations. And then in one of the barns, they had done it to grow pot, like legally.
Yeah.
Just massive operation. And then in the second barn, I kept smelling cat urine, and it was all junked up with stuff.
Meth?
That is meth.
Okay.
So I kept smelling cat urine. I'm like, yeah, something's going on. And it was dark and whatever. So I tripped over something. And when I looked down, it was one of the cooks sleeping under a blanket. And he kind of stumbled up, and I'm like, oh, crap, I'm going to get shot again.
Wait. So what blows my mind the most, so this home was like an active listing that then somebody was under contract to purchase. Yep. So while listing a home, somebody had an active meth lab, pot farm.
I didn't find the actual lab but it was there.
It wasn't
there.
It wasn't just a cat barn.
Yeah. There was a lot of boxes, and it was kind of an obscured area in the barn, but I know it was in there somewhere. I just
Did you finish the inspection? Like, did you do the inspection of what the house and all the barns?
I did. Yeah. Yeah. There were some areas I couldn't get to.
500-page report?
It was a big one. Yeah. Yeah. I had a run with investors buying acreage and properties to buy pot.
Okay.
For about 2 years.
Okay.
So I had some really, really interesting inspections
ones
during that time, but that one stands out.
Do you think are large acreage inspections normally like really interesting because there's lots of outbuildings and things like that, or?
And people build the house however they want,
or especially out in the country, it's just kind of whatever goes.
They have no regard for code. Yeah. They use whatever materials are on site. They do whatever they want. They're wild.
So then, how do you approach that? Like, do you put everything in a report, or is it like you're only tackling truly health and safety?
I'm going after the big stuff.
Yeah.
So if I have, and that's true with every inspection.
Yeah.
say I have 3 hours on the house, I'm going after the biggest stuff I can find in those 3 hours. And I'm not going to care if a door doesn't open and close right in the closet.
Right. Like in a new construction, maybe you care about that door because that's like about
Yep.
all you're finding. But
And if the house is perfect, I might mark up stupid little things like, caulking on the backsplash isn't right.
Yeah.
So it just depends on the house.
Yeah.
But I generally like to have a similar amount of comments per house, varying degrees of how bad they are depending on the house.
Yeah. What I always like about you is that you're not an alarmist. Like you pick out the things that truly like could kill you.
Yeah.
Or I love how you always point out things that I think are like easily fixable. Like
Oh.
you can go do this at Home Depot. You can
Yeah.
whatever, like it's not. I like that you're not an alarmist because some
thanks.
people are.
I appreciate that. I had one last week where I was like, that'd be super easy to do. And the agent turned to me and they're like, no, they're not doing this. Their handyman would do this.
Well, fine.
And I was like, okay, different caliber of buyer.
Right.
Yeah.
But fine, their handyman can do it.
Yeah.
But the point is that this is like a little handyman fix. Like
Yeah.
you don't need to blow up a deal over it.
Correct. Yep. There are times
You advise
I
that this is
try
maybe
to-
not a house to continue
yeah.
with. Yeah,
so it
I've
depends on the
seen-
house.
We've had that. Although you inspected our place at Welch's and you didn't
Yeah.
tell me to like run away from that one.
Well, you had every contractor there. And
Yeah.
That was okay. The only one where I may have pulled the buyer aside and told him to run
Yeah.
was the motorcycle guy. That second house that was
Yeah.
really weird. That was just a bad house.
Because there was
top
just
to
a
bottom.
lot of things.
Yep.
Yeah. Fair. I appreciate that. Okay, so here's a question for you. How has technology changed your job in the last 5 years? And what do you see coming next?
As of this week, I wear a body cam now.
Wait, why?
Yeah,
In case somebody comes out with a shotgun, or does this like help document what's happening?
A multitude of different reasons. So first and foremost, liability.
Okay.
A lot of agents recently had just been giving me codes to the house and they're not there and the house is occupied.
Which is not good. And people
Correct.
should be there for an inspection.
Especially if it's
in an occupied home.
So if
Yeah.
something goes missing, I don't want anyone calling me. I have camera of everything I do.
That's smart.
Second, if I miss something, it's often I'll go back in my report and I'm like, God, I wish I had a picture of that.
Oh, and then you do.
Now I have a video
Like
of the whole
little
thing.
things that you're
Yep.
like, oh, I
Yep.
didn't get the picture of that GFCI.
Every
or
single
like-
thing
yeah.
my hands and eyes see, I now have a camera of. So that's really nice.
Yeah.
And then liability.
Yeah.
So what started it, I had a listing agent, you know who you are if you're watching this, who was difficult. And I just went to use like a screen door, just went to move it and the whole thing fell off. And so
It probably wasn't from you. Yeah.
it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
I observed a defect.
Yeah.
They said I broke it. There's a difference between those two things.
Yeah.
So
and you have proof of it.
Correct. Well, I didn't. That's why I have a body cam now.
That's why you do now.
But I was nice. I took the door inside, put cardboard against it on the wall so it didn't scratch anything, made sure the wind didn't destroy it outside. I'm like,
Yeah.
really stand up inspector here.
Right. Help to fix it.
And they wanted me to buy a new screen door.
I know. And that's probably
So-
like such a misconception. Like there's things that you can't do. Like if something's not on, you can't turn it on, right? Like if like the
Correct.
water's off or
I can't.
like you can't,
Yeah.
right.
Because I don't know why it's off.
Right.
So if there's a pipe disconnected in the roof, I don't want to,
Right.
or in the attic,
Which
I
is
don't
like a
wanna,
reminder to people anytime you're
Yeah.
having your home inspected, make sure that like electrical panels accessible, like all those things, water's on, obviously.
Yeah.
So, I mean, speaking a little bit about that, like tell me a little bit more about like what you do and don't do as an inspector. Like what are things you can actually inspect and what are the things that like that's not part of your scope?
So for the most part, I'm non-invasive, and that's true with all inspectors.
Yeah.
So that means I'm taking a snapshot of the house, how it is in its current condition, and I'm operating all fixtures using operator controls. So the furnace, I'm operating with the thermostat, all the plumbing fixtures with normal valves. I'm not using weird settings or stuff like that. There's a handful of exceptions. So the electrical panel, I'm allowed to take the dead front off,
Okay.
except commercial.
I know you do love a really pretty electrical
I
panel.
love it. I'll post videos of those. I love
I
it.
know.
Commercial, I can't do 400 amps. So
Okay.
that takes an electrician. So I am limited on commercial inspections or residential, never. And then furnace covers. I can
Yeah.
take the doors off the furnace. So those
Okay.
are basically the two exceptions as far as mechanical systems go. And then to get attic access, crawl space access, every so often I have to remove a door for that.
Okay.
That's pretty much it. For the most part, I'm a snapshot in time of how the house is and how the systems work.
Right. And then like you usually in your inspections give advice that you might want X, Y, and Z follow-up specialists to
Yep.
look at this.
And I'm a generalist.
Yeah.
So I know a little bit about a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have opinions about everything, but some things you're going to need a specialist. They're going to know a lot about a little bit.
Yeah.
Their opinion might be different than mine.
Yeah.
You're paying for my opinion as an inspector. I'm giving you my recommendations. If you have a contractor comes in that takes something apart and finds something else, they might have a different opinion of what needs to be done.
And it doesn't mean that you are wrong. It's just different.
Correct.
It's a difference of opinion.
Yep.
I find that's probably another big misnomer in inspections is that you could have 5 different inspectors out. They're going to have 5 different inspection reports.
100%.
They might all find the missing GFCI by the kitchen sink, but they're not all going to think the same thing. Like I know there's certain things that I know you always bring up, like about the toilet, how you caulk around a toilet. And then the fans in the bathrooms.
It's almost every report.
Those are always on your reports.
Yeah.
Why? Tell me a little bit more about that.
Toilet caulking. Now we're getting good.
It's so exciting talking toilets.
So this one's really controversial, actually.
Yeah.
But Portland specific. This is our region. Your toilet is only attached to the floor with 2 bolts. And it's a porcelain tank or a porcelain bowl. So you don't want to really crank those down. So generally speaking, you caulk around the front and the sides of the toilet to the floor.
Okay.
So it prevents the toilet from rocking around, which could damage the seal. And then also just keeps everything clean. It looks better. I just think it's a win across the board. If you caulk on the back of the toilet, so all the way around, if there's ever a leak or if there's ever a problem, you're not going to know.
You don't know until it's like way too late.
Correct. Until it's rotted out the subfloor or the ceiling drops or something. The house I did today, the ceiling dropped from a leaking toilet, actually.
Are you serious?
That's what
And you're
caused that
like,
whole
oh,
bathroom
well, you
remodel.
should come watch my Instagram video about while I talk about it.
The contractor did not caulk the back of that toilet, though, so they did it right.
There you go.
And then bathroom vent fans, they're a fire safety issue to me.
Yeah.
So they get clogged up with dirt and lint, and the fan motor stops. People leave them on. And then that fire goes right to the attic where there's no smoke detectors. Everything's dry. By the time
That's
you smell smoke,
actually
your
really scary.
attic is ablaze.
Yeah.
So they do have thermal coupler switches and some safety features, but still, there's still the chance. And then I'm in old houses mostly.
Yeah.
So old houses, there are safety issues. Yeah.
I mean, I could like talk to you all day about like what are the things that people should be doing and all this. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
This was fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I'll definitely have to have you back. For anyone that's following, you need to make sure that you're following Ryan, Portland Property Inspectors. What's your Instagram?
At Portland Property Inspectors. Okay. And of note, the only reason I'm on that channel is because of you.
Oh, well, thank you.
It was, again, going back to the crazy house of the motorcycle guy.
Yeah.
We were standing out front there. You took a picture of me when I was on a ladder doing something. And you're like, you should get on Instagram.
Yes, 'cause
every
you're funny.
agent in this city is on here.
Yes.
And I'm like, I hate social media. I'm not going to do it. So like 6 months later, I actually did it. And it was a rough start, but I've gotten some traction. Thank you.
You're hilarious. Yeah. And I find like some of your information is also valuable. So I had this whole conversation with both my in-laws and my parents about whether or not you're supposed to seal up your vents in the winter. Yeah. And I'm like, I wish my in-laws aren't on Instagram. My parents are. And I forwarded the video to my mom of yours about like, here's why you either do or don't need to do foundation vents in the winter, depending on the age of the home, all of that. But I find there's like good tips. You make it hilarious.
Thanks.
But it's valuable info. So
one quick question. Yeah. Have you paid attention to me linking videos in the report?
Yes. Yeah. I like that.
Yay or nay?
No, I like that because I like, and I think it's perfect, especially for like the younger generation who likes to consume things based on video or somebody who just wants to, I think that's a great solution to it.
Cool. No, and just so you guys know, I link to specific comments. I link a video explaining that comment to the report.
Yeah.
So that way the buyer can see the comment. It might not make sense. Then they'll click a video and it's me doing a video explaining that, showing usually some horrific thing, worst case scenario associated with that comment.
I love, like, you've really put out there some good information. You also make it funny, but, I appreciate you. Obviously, you're my go-to. I've personally used you on home inspections, even really, really bad ones. And so thank you again for being willing to be here with me today.
Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. I'm Shannon Janssen, real estate agent here in Portland, Oregon. Please be sure to click subscribe on my YouTube channel or come follow me on Instagram.